Good morning, it's Chad C. from C Real Estate here in Richmond, Virginia. And this morning I want to talk to you about buying foreclosures. Houses that have been foreclosed on. And I get asked oftentimes, how do I do that? How do I find a list of houses that have been foreclosed on that I might be able to buy? And when a buyer asks me that, a lot of times they do so thinking, well, I'll get a great deal on it. I'll pay less than market value, or it'll be something that'll be a fixer-upper that I can fix up and own and get in at a lower price. Sometimes they're investors who want to buy a foreclosure as an investment. There's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misunderstandings around foreclosures. The way they work basically is when a person buys a house, they'll sign papers, they'll sign a deed of trust here in the state of Virginia, and they'll agree that if we don't make our payments, you, lender, can take ownership of the property, take it back. It's the collateral. And when that happens, when a person doesn't make their payments and a property gets foreclosed on, first of all, the bank doesn't want it. They're not in the real estate owning and selling business. They would rather somebody just make their payments and then the lender earn the interest that was agreed to. But if they have to take it back, the first step is normally there'll be an auction outside the county or city courthouse whereby that lender wants to auction the property off for enough to just pay what is owed to them. Oftentimes that doesn't happen. Now, so that's the first way you can buy a foreclosure. You show up at the auction and you're prepared to raise your hand, and they may say, well, the bid start at $225,000, and somebody might think certainly worth that, and they'll raise their hand. If you buy a house at an auction like that, normally you will have not seen the inside. You're buying it as is. You have to have cash or a line of credit. You're going to be agreeing to hand over the cash in short order when you buy it. And the truth is, not everybody can do that. So your average home buyer who just wants to buy a home to live in, when I tell them how that works at an auction at the courthouse, there's just not many who either have the cash or a line of credit where they can agree to pay for it that quickly. So that rules out the idea of buying a foreclosure for a lot of people. Now, if you're an investor and you have a line of credit or available cash, that's a good option. Show up at that courthouse and maybe the bids will be low enough for it to make sense for you as an investor. But if it doesn't sell at that auction, what happens is the lender, the bank, takes ownership of the property and it becomes what we call REO, real estate owned by this corporation. At that point in time, they still don't want it. They want to get it sold. So they'll employ a realtor to put the house on the market and find a buyer for it. When they do so, sometimes they'll still be selling it as is. They'll allow buyers to have inspections and maybe even allow a buyer to get financing and go through the normal route that people go through when purchasing a home. Every now and then I'll see a lender who will make renovations or improvements to the house, realizing it's in their best interest to put it in as good a shape as possible so that as many people as possible can qualify to buy it. Because the condition of the house oftentimes determines whether or not another bank will loan someone money to buy it. At this stage in the game, what normally doesn't happen is it's not listed for sale for below market value. That lender is still going to want to get as much as they can for the property. They'll hire a realtor or appraisers to assess the value of the property, and they're going to try to get as much as they can for it. When houses are listed like this, they're mixed in with all the other houses that are listed for sale. So you as the consumer could be looking at Zillow or another major website, and you might see 5 houses for sale. 2 of them might be owned by a bank. You don't know from looking at it online. Your realtor can typically find out by looking at tax records and seeing who the current owner is. But the ones that are owned by a bank typically aren't priced any lower than every other house that's for sale by your average home seller. So that's a way, once it's listed by a realtor, especially if improvements are made to it, that's a way that a foreclosure can be available to everyone. But there's no separate list, and you just keep watching your normal portals for houses that are for sale. That's the most important thing to do. Just look for a house that works for you, and almost don't even worry about whether or not it's owned by a bank. You just find the one that's right for you. You go from there. If you have ready available cash and you can go to these auctions at the courthouses, yeah, sometimes you can get a good deal and a good opportunity there. But that's just a little oversight on how foreclosures and buying them, how that whole process works this morning. I hope you have a great week.